Oh man, if there was ever a movie that bit off way more than it could chew, this one right here. I feel like a little bit of backstory is needed for this, so for those of you who aren't big into movie news and who are just going to see this passively as cinema goes, what you need to know, you've probably seen, if you have seen this movie, when the Universal logo comes, the globe then spins and you get the Dark Universe thing appear. In case you're not in the know, essentially what Universal have decided to do is reinvigorate and remake all of their old monster franchise. They basically want a monster cinematic universe. Someone's been watching some Marvel movies, and The Mummy was supposed to be the kickoff point. So you need to go into this movie, if you haven't seen it already, knowing that this movie is trying to set up a big expanded universe that will feature the likes of the Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, the Wolfman is supposed to be rumoured. I'm sure they're going to bring in Dracula at some stage, the Mummy, all of the monsters basically. Now knowing that, this is why this movie suffers. First off, kudos to hiring the biggest film star in the world, Tom Cruise. And I can't say I've ever seen Tom Cruise so miscast in a movie. And that's saying something, because I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. I do get my kicks watching Tom Cruise running in action movies. He runs well, and he does action well, and he does movie star well. He does none of those in this movie. His character, Nick Morton, you never really get to like him, who basically comes off as just a thieving ancient treasure hunter. This is not a likable person. That's a problem, because Tom Cruise is an inherently likable person when he's in his movies. Forget about what he's like in the outside world. He is likable. When you watch him on screen, you like Tom Cruise. It's just one of the charms he has. Not the case in this movie, and that isn't because of Tom Cruise's mistake, that is just because he was badly cast in this movie. I get why they cast him, biggest movie star in the world, he always makes money at the box office, get him in, start off your Monsters universe. Didn't work. It starts off in Iraq, or as they like to call it, the Cradle of Life, Mesopotamia. They come across this ancient tomb in the aftermath of a big gunfight, which was actually quite well filmed, to be fair. And they resurrect this tomb, which we find out is the tomb of this ancient evil called Armanet. Armanet is the mummy in this movie, played by Sofia Boutella, who I have to say was the one thing I did enjoy about this movie. She was cool. I liked the design in her. I liked how she embodied the mummy. I liked the way that she tried to make it a horror role, despite the fucking director and script's best efforts to try and not make this a horror movie. We'll get onto that in a second. But if you've seen the old Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser, it's quite reminiscent to that. Mummy gets resurrected. Mummy needs to feed off of people to bring herself back to full form. And that's the rhythm and flow that we go through for the first, I would say, 2/3 of this movie. Halfway through the second act, then we start throwing in the big universe expansion because Dr. Jekyll, played by Russell Crowe, comes in. Now they're doing their very best to make Russell Crowe the Nick Fury of this world, and just like Tom Cruise, it doesn't fucking work. Not only with the art direction in terms of how they designed Dr. Jekyll, specifically Mr. Hyde obviously, who you do see in this movie, didn't look cool. It just looked like a red Russell Crowe, or glowing Russell Crowe, however you want to see it. Russell Crowe's one of the best actors in the world, for Christ's sake, and he was terrible in this role. I couldn't believe I was watching Russell Crowe. And this is where it clicked with me what was wrong with this movie. It doesn't know what the fuck it wants to be. The old Mummy movie from way back in the 30s, undoubtedly a horror movie. The 90s version with Brendan Fraser, which I actually love and I've rewatched recently, and it's a fun fucking movie. It's not scary, but it had some horror elements to it, but it was going for more of a swashbuckling affair, and it succeeded. This movie can't decide what the fuck it wants to be. Is it a horror movie? Yeah, it's got some horror imagery, and it's actually, if you know your horror, it's got some nice little, tongue-in-cheek throwbacks to old horror movies. Like there's a shot which literally looks like out of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. The way that Nick Morton's dead friend comes to life looks like something out of An American Werewolf in London. There was even a scene where they were fighting in a library, and the female character, Jenny, and the actress's name evades me, I'm sorry, this girl, smacks one of the villains over the head with a book. That book just happens to be the Book of Amun-Ra from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie. I was like, oh, nice. If you're a horror fan and if you're a fan of this franchise, you'll get some of the old references. But beyond the references, wasn't really a horror movie. And the action, despite, as I said, the first scene actually being quite enjoyable, tedious, really tedious, dull, it kind of trudged along. It was fun, but it was very, very forgettable in terms of action. It was generic, it was formulaic, there was nothing that felt fresh about it. And that's a problem when you're trying to make a cinematic universe. You better fucking stand out. Think of what Marvel did with Iron Man. This was coming off an age of where superhero movies sucked. Iron Man changed that big time. Okay, granted, DC did it with Batman too, but Iron Man on the Marvel side completely changed how people perceived comic book movies. All of a sudden, oh shit, they were cool. That's because the first movie worked, and without Iron Man, we wouldn't have the MCU now. This is no Iron Man. It doesn't feel fun or fresh. It's not a horror. It's not a swashbuckling adventure. It's nothing. And above everything, the thing that this movie cannot be forgiven for is the fucking comedy in it. I mean, there's a scene after Tom Cruise, minor spoiler, but bear with me, I'm just trying to make a point here. There's a scene after which Tom Cruise has supposedly died, and he wakes up in a morgue in a plastic bag, obviously naked, because that's how they stow dead people. He wakes up, realizes he's alive, oh my god, what's happened? People walk in, and his first reaction is, oh, I'm naked, hide me. It's like, sorry, if you just thought you were dead, you wouldn't be worried about hiding your big or your small Johnson. You'd be thinking, for the first people who walked in the room, you'd ask them, how? You wouldn't say, And then when the credits rolled, it all made sense. Directed by Alex Kurtzman. Where do I know that name from? Yeah, he wrote these pieces of shit. Oh, and I like the Transformers, but the comedy in the Transformers, cringe. That's the type of comedy you get in The Mummy. Brace yourselves, kids, because it's not a good movie. In conclusion, I am scoring The Mummy, probably overscoring it, but just to be fair, because of the one or two redeeming things, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. The redeeming things were, I like Sofia Boutella as the Mummy, although she wasn't given enough to do. I liked the design on her. I liked some of the little throwbacks and the little tips of the hat to the horror movies of old. Tom Cruise, despite the being miscast, despite the script not being great, is infinitely likable. Can't help that. So basically, if you like Tom Cruise, that's why I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Otherwise, if you don't like Tom Cruise, maybe you knock a point off. But ultimately, this is a mixed fucking bag of movies. It's trying to build a universe, and it doesn't do it in a subtle way at all. Ultimately fails in that. It tries to introduce new characters who are like Tom Cruise. Very miscast. Looking at you, Russell Crowe. Terrible Dr. Jekyll. It tries to do action, but doesn't do it well. It tries to do horror, or thinks it's trying to do horror, doesn't do it well, and like all the Transformers movies, thinks it's funny, but it's not. So over to you guys, what did you think? Have you seen The Mummy? Did you like it? And which of the Dark Universe movies from the Monsters universe are you most looking forward to? Leave your thoughts in your comments below. Please give this video a thumbs up, and click one of these 2 videos right now to see more reviews from this guy, Nico Lura of the Silver Screen Dudes. And after I disappear, big logo right here will appear. Click on that to subscribe and become a Silver Screen Dude. See ya!